Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dak Xavier Josiah, the host of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the podcast. You want to catch up with all of our podcast shows and hear from some of the hottest names in all of anime, comics, movies, and games, such as...
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto.
This is Stephanie Shea, the voice of Sailor Moon.
This is Ruben Langdon, voice of Ken Masters and Dante from Devil May Cry.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V.
This is Chris Battle, character designer of Teen Titans Go.
Here's your chance to check out all of that and more on TalkTimeLive.com. TalkTimeLive.com provides all of our ACMG content with new and previous episodes, exclusive interviews, articles, and much more. Visit TalkTimeLive.com and let us help you learn to let go, live life, and love all things ACMG.
Talk Time Live.
Hey, this is Jeff Thorne. I am the writer, producer, showrunner of the upcoming Avengers Black Panther's Quest TV series, and you are listening to ACMG Presents Talk Time Live.
It's time. Talk time. Let's go. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time live. Started in the 80s with Matt Cross. Dudes in the hood might have called that soft, but I carried that cross like Jesus did. Fast forward, I teach the kids to learn how to let go, live life, and show love to all things that don't matter where y'all from. And luckily, there's a show called Talk Time. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Dax kicks the facts on all the geek news, special guests and unbiased reviews. Suburban kids, the hipster street dudes, all can learn something new. Me too. I heard words when no faith is empty. I stayed the course so my haters tempt me. Beat the podcast, that'll make them envy. It ain't too trendy, it's ACMG. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games. Come on and let's get it. Talk time live.
Welcome back. This is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live, the Prime Show. Early, not on a Sunday. We are getting it going this week. There's so much to talk about this week. It ain't funny. I mean, after all this, I'm still going to do another show on Sunday because there's going to be 2 reviews I'm going to be doing there. We also have Select Start, which I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to be reviewing Super Smash Brothers, what I think of it, as well as some new gaming products for the Nintendo Switch as well, including that the Joy-Con D-pad version, the Super Mario version that I brought when I was at New York. So I'll be talking about that and another new item that might be helpful for you guys that I showed to the ACMG Facebook group just a few days ago. So we're going to be having that. I'll have that tomorrow that I'm going to talk about and any other gaming news that'll be going on. So stay tuned for that. But we're going to be just bunching up a lot of shows this week. I mean, especially leading up to Christmas because I won't be doing a show on Christmas. Obviously, I never do one every year. We always take a break for that. And then New Year's prior to that as well. So I may get like one show before New Year's coming because I'm going to be doing stuff as well. Christmas, I'm going to be locked down as well. So I might as well just get up and going. But we got a lot going on. Elseworlds. My God, we're going to be talking about that this episode. We have all 3 episodes that came by from Sunday to Tuesday. And man, they did it again. Greg Berlanti and the entire crew in the DCW universe, the Arrowverse, if you will, outdid themselves again. Was this better than Crisis on Earth X or the prior crossover, which I always forget was the name of that crossover, but the first one. But I absolutely enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved all the episodes. A lot of fanfare for DC comic fans as well in there, and just a lot of fun this time around. But it felt like a prelude to something bigger, and you knew that something bigger was coming. If you're a DC fan, you were hoping that bigger things were coming. And yes, it in fact did. And they announced it. This was nothing more than a absolutely epic prelude to what fans were asking for quite a while since they started doing these crossovers, especially with Crisis on Earth X. A lot of people felt that it was something bigger was coming. And you couldn't get any bigger than this announcement at the end. I might as well just talk about it at the top. And they announced at the end of all this that Crisis on Infinite Earth is coming in 2019. For those of you who are not DC comic fans, or at least novice like myself to DC comic fans, but I even know what Crisis on Infinite Earth is. This is their Infinity Gauntlet. This is the biggest thing to come in the DC universe, in the DC comic universe. Still to this day, they've had a lot of different big events. The recent one with what is that? With the Watchmen, the Flashpoint Paradox, which is a big deal because it turned everything into the New 52 universe. But still, to this day, many purists, many hardcore DC fans will always point at Crisis on Infinite Earth because there was a lot of things that came up out of that saga that went down and changed everything. And if they do it even close to what that comic book was, it's going to be some major tragedies. I mean, bigger than when Professor Stein died in Crisis on Infinite or Earth X. I'm sorry. And this is the big one. This is absolutely the big one. This is their Infinity Wars. After watching this show, I literally was like, why do they need DC films? Greg Berlanti Productions have done a phenomenal job with this, and we're going to run down all of these episodes and the highlights of what I thought of this show. So, I mean, let's not even waste time with that. On Sunday, they switched it around too. On Sunday, it was The Flash. Normally, it's Supergirl that plays on, but they made it into an episode of The Flash, even though it was all Elseworld, special series. They started with telling the story of The Flash from here. This episode of The Flash, which was Elseworld Part 1, was directed by Kevin Tonsarian, I believe it's pronounced. Written and developed by Greg Berlanti and Andre Kaisberg. What I love about this is that each episode is directed and written by different people. Greg Berlanti is overseeing everything, but they made sure, and this is probably Greg Berlanti's doing, making sure that the flow of everything was exactly the same, but still had the feel of each other's, show. And I thought this was incredible. They did a great job. The Flash episode starts with, it begins with Arkham Professor John Deegan, played by Jeremy Davis, doing a presentation, but getting overlooked by other scientists for his theories and his formulas to, I guess, manipulate reality or some theory that he was coming up with. And the few people that were in there to listen were not trying to hear it, and they all walked out on him as a result. This led to him coming out in total distraught, while all of a sudden Marnova, the Monitor, appears out of nowhere, gives him the book that will allow him to rewrite realities under his own vision. This result led to Oliver waking up in the morning next to Iris in bed, as she is, for some reason, her and everybody in Star City just thought that Oliver was Barry at this point. So he's realizing that something's majorly wrong here, and he's at all at this whole entire thing. Meanwhile, Barry is suddenly realizing out of the blue, and the snap of the blink of his eye, he's fighting and training with Diggle, and realizing that he has Oliver's ability. So he automatically realized that he was Green Arrow, and that he had the abilities. And I think the entire Flash crew, which was so great about this, and they pointed this out, was that the Flash and the whole entire Star Labs crew are so used to all these alternate reality situations that they automatically knew from the get-go that something was, well, at least Barry did at first, But when Barry and Oliver finally got together, and Oliver realized that he had the power of, Barry's speed force power, and he had a hard time using it. It almost came off like the Greatest American Hero when he was using Barry's power. It was hilarious. He's still trying to get the hang of it and everything. So the deal is that they finally got together, so they wanted to convince the Starlab crew of what's going on so they can help out and find out how to get those two back together. In the midst of this, Oliver and Barry are, Barry's having a lot more fun with this whole thing than anything, because he admires, Oliver so much as being the cool, collective, badass. So he finally gets the chance to be him, and he's having this Freaky Friday moment, as what he believes. He figures it out. But then later on, as the running gag of all this is that Barry, Cisco, Ralph, and Sherlock Wells is having a debate as are they having a Freaky Friday moment or a Quantum Leap moment, which was hilarious there. Barry is all about being Oliver, at least up until Oliver informs him that he woke up with Iris in bed, and that's when he changed his whole entire thing. It was like, oh, we gotta get this, we gotta fix this. There's a lot of great comedy moments in this Flash episode here that I loved. The crazy part was when they were trying to convince the Star Labs crew. I don't know why the Star Labs crew thought that they were crazy, but they decided to, knock them out and take them down so they can figure out what was going on. Then they finally figured out that they believed Iris more or less believed them. So they figured it out there. And the only way that they felt that they could possibly know if anything was really going on all over the place, Barry decided to figure out, let's go to Earth 38, ergo where Supergirl lives at. So Cisco decided to, teleport them over to to that Earth, which then leads to one of the coolest moments of the entire episode. Somebody in the writing crew decided to get the original Smallville theme song from the TV show Smallville and use it in the transition scene that led to Earth 38. It was a really cool move, which led to them being at the Kent barn, or the Kent farm, where we saw Kara, Clark, and the debut of Lois Lane, played by, I believe her name is Elizabeth Tulloch. She played in quite a few different movies and shows as well. So we got to see Lois for the first time, and Clark and such together, and they were traveling. They were explaining where Clark has been all this time, and Clark has been away at another planet with Lois, and they were visiting and going on vacation, and trusted, Supergirl to everything that was going on in the world, including all the crap that's going on with Agent Liberty, which they never really talked about in any of these episodes at all. So very interesting to note there. But Barry and Oliver decided to come back. They found them. They got to really introduce themselves to Superman for the first time ever, which was really cool. But realizing that Kara sees them as their normal selves. So the effects of what Professor or Dr. Deegan is doing in Earth 1 is not happening in Earth 38. So that was a great thing. Then they convinced both Clark and Kara to come back into Earth 1 to help them out with the situation there, which they did. Which, by the way, I should really point out, the biggest thing that happened in this first episode was the fact that Dr. Deegan went all the way to finally awaken Dr. Ivo's Amazo robot, which we've been waiting to see since the first season of Arrow, because they've been teasing Amazo coming to this universe for God knows how long, because of the ship that he was traveling in from Dr. Ivo, which was the Amazo. And we were like, when is this damn robot coming? When is it coming? When is it coming? We got Red Tornado, in Crisis on Earth X in this Supergirl season 1, but we never got Amazo. They finally gave us Amazo, and let me tell you, I could not be any happier with the results of this CGI scene that they did with the battle that the superheroes were going in at, and it was absolutely amazing, no pun intended. I absolutely loved it. So, getting Clark into the universe and fighting Amazo along with the others, and all of them working together to try to, rid themselves of it, was absolutely awesome. I'm glad they did not forget this character and bring him back. And then, the budget that they have will allow them to create this major great scene here. So I absolutely enjoyed it. People in the A.C.M.G Facebook group enjoyed it as well. So that was awesome to see right there. The two didn't realize in order to truly make this work that they had to initially work together and become each other and assimilate to each other's personality. So Barry had to become Oliver and become the dark, jaded badass that he is. And Oliver had to be more uplifting and spry, if you will, and his happy-go-lucky self to some extent. This was interesting, but the highlight of this entire series, the whole entire part 1, 2, and 3 of this, though, came when Barry, pretty much as Oliver, had to train Oliver as Barry in order to, become the Flash, to really, learn how to, hone his Speed Force powers. They did this by doing what they did in the first crossover when Oliver was trying to train Barry with with his Speed Force and to help him become faster by shooting him in the back with 2 arrows, sneaking him off. So Barry wound up getting his payback by doing the exact same thing to Oliver, and it was priceless. It's the one thing that people online on social media was talking about the most, because people who watched that a long time ago, was one of the funniest moments back then. It was even funnier now because not only did Barry get the payback and he enjoyed it, he actually took a picture for for his personal use on his phone for it, and Oliver was so pissed off, and he had no right to be pissed off because he did the exact same thing to him and pulled him off. It did like everything the exact same way. It was one of the funniest moments, if not one of the cherished MVP moments of the entire 3-part series in there as well. One of the interesting things was everybody kept going to Felicity, about the fact that she didn't realize it and Iris did because they were bonded together, but also they had more experience in this situation. And they were trying to, and Iris had a moment with Felicity saying that, look, this has nothing to do with how much you love them. I mean, you guys have changed, but, what we went through, we've been going through this craziness for God knows how long, and Felicity was understanding of it, but she wasn't convinced because of her change during the situation with Dragon Diaz and such, and the situation with Oliver and him since he'd been out of jail. So they kind of talked about that storyline with it, but they never talked about the Agent Liberty situation that was going on. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, didn't do anything to affect the ongoing development of this particular story, but the fact that they didn't necessarily mention that is quite interesting. So they managed to figure out what was going on in that note, but to actually further get to the deep of it, they had to go find Professor Deegan, who is in Gotham City. This leads to the end of this episode, and we see for the first time ever, and not only the debut of Gotham City, but Kate Kane herself, Ruby Rose as Kate Kane in Gotham, and that's where it stopped off from there. So Arrow led off to that episode of them going into Gotham. That was very appropriate that Arrow goes into Gotham because Arrow technically is, their version of Batman in this point. But I love what they did with this episode of Arrow, and which was directed by James Bamford, written and developed by Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim. And Mark Guggenheim gets around a lot. He does a lot. I've heard his name come up so many times in so many different things. So this was great. It was an awesome episode debuting the debut of Kate Kane, by actress Ruby Rose from Orange is the New Black fame and so many other movies. And she's just a total badass. She's really... They could not have found a better actress to play this role. Could not have. She looked just like her. She has the aura of badass in her. They lucked out majorly with this. It had to have been an easy pick. So, this one shows Oliver, Barry, Kara entering Gotham City, and they find out that, not only just to find Professor Deegan, but to also, find out about the rumors of whether Batman is true, because Oliver, for some reason, never believed that Batman was true. And if you guys remember, there was a past episode of Arrow which first mentioned Gotham City and Bruce Wayne and Batman all in one swoop when he was mayor, and they were asking about it. So they put the seeds in a long time ago in the episode of Arrow, way back when he was actually mayor, that they put it in. So they knew that they were doing this, and they planted the seeds there, but they continued that by Oliver not believing it, and he had reason to believe that it was Gotham police making rumors just to scare off, criminals in their town. There was a funny scene in there where he actually truly believed that he was the first vigilante, and he kind of shouted out almost in like a crybaby like type of way, saying that like I'm the original vigilante here. So, that was a really cool moment that they had. And then they go into Wayne Enterprises, which was really cool. Absolutely cool for them to go in there. But they found it to be kind of abandoned, almost like graffiti everywhere and stuff. There were certain parts of the Wayne Enterprises building that wasn't, done. But they had Kate Kane in there. She's the only person in there at this time. And so they had her, they met her for the first time, but they don't know or realize, well, not all of them realize that she's, Batwoman, or even that a Batwoman exists. So she allowed them to, be at home and accompany him to do what they need to do and such from there. So they found out where he resided at, and they had to go to Arkham Asylum to seek him. And when he did, I believe, if I remember correctly, he actually created a diversion, which, led all havoc to happen. But before that, they ended up in this archive room. And in this archive room, very, very cool things happened here. There was a lot of Easter egg items in this room, including Bane's mask from Dark Knight Rises. Now, here's the interesting thing that I was thinking about this here. And shout out to Rich Williams in our A.C.M.G. Facebook group when we were doing the actual, the live post, commenting during the show. I missed out on this too, and I DVR'd it, so I'm gonna watch it again. He missed out on it. I missed out on this, but he said also the original bust from the 1966 version of Batman, the Adam West Batman, was also in that archive room as well. So there was a lot of cool Easter eggs. I gotta go back and check it out. But they blatantly made sure that you saw Bane's mask. The interesting thing about that is that the storyline with this is that Kate and Oliver said that we haven't seen Bruce Wayne since he's left out, and Kate Kane also said Batman has been gone ever since too. He's been away. Now, the connection that I have here, the theory that I have here, but it can't. Also, the theory is kind of a bust, and here's why. But the theory that I have here is that they have Bane's mask from The Dark Knight Rises. They also explained that both Batman and Bruce Wayne have been away for God knows how long. In Dark Knight Rises, at the end, we have Bruce Wayne leaving with Catwoman as they go away and leave Wayne Manor as it has been, with Alfred leaving kind of as well. He left Wayne Manor and Wayne Enterprises. The only thing that messes this theory up is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt took over things as Batman, sort of, kind of, or he was, they kind of Easter egged it and hint that he was Robin. And that's the only part that messes that whole entire theory up, is that, like, okay, if that truly is, rather, they have to mention Joseph Gordon-Levitt into this, or what happened to him, in order for this to really be connected to the Christopher Nolan movie shows. And if you guys remember from way back, when the very first season of Arrow, the whole vibe of Arrow and how they did things, it felt very much, and I mean very much, like a Christopher Nolan series. Like, the whole presence and everything was very Christopher Nolan. And I think they kind of patterned Arrow to Christopher Nolan's style of filmmaking. So I don't know if it is just a Easter egg homage to that, or will they actually connect Christopher Nolan's world and universe, Batman universe, to the Arrowverse. And that's always been speculated from day one. If anybody's been following Arrow since day one, it had the vibe, it had the feel. Although they never mentioned it, it really felt like if they wanted to, they could mix the two together. This actually is interesting. So I don't really think too much of it, but it's just very interesting that all of these little elements kind of could connect together if they really want to, with the exception that they would have to explain what happened to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. That's the only thing, but I found that very interesting there. So you got that situation, and of course, when the other cool part of this is that, like I said, when the professor kind of created some type of, I believe, if I'm correct, he did create some type of diversion and released all of the inmates, to cause chaos. Somewhere in between that, these vials of serums or whatever fell, come to find out is from a professor or Dr. Crane, ergo the Scarecrow. So it's Scarecrow's fear toxin that released, and that led to Oliver and Barry, both them as switching bodies, encountering each other's, fears. So Barry encountered Merlin because he was Oliver. Meanwhile, Oliver was encountering the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne, as as the Flash. So they kind of got into each other's worlds for that moment, but at the same time they were fighting each other. And all of a sudden, we enter Kate as Batwoman in full Batwoman suit, and she single-handedly, almost as if it was the Black Panther versus the Fantastic Four, taking out both of those guys, in almost like one swoop. It was awesome. I mean, what they did with her in her debut has been phenomenal throughout this. Throughout this episode. So, forgive me. I'm actually I'm going through a cold right now. A bit of a cold right now, thanks to my wife, sickness and health and all that stuff. But I digress. It was a great episode, and she made a lot of great appearances on here, and felt very much like Batman here or Batwoman. She looked the part. I mean, just absolutely, they did a phenomenal job here. Even on top of that, after they, calmed down the chaos and got everything back into control, Batwoman basically just kicked them out for the most part to stop, to further any chaos in here. But they found everything they needed to know. But it left with this really cool moment as Kara and Kate got together, and they had this little respect bonding moment, this world's finest moment with them, and they shook hands, and, Kara revealed that she knew who she was. At the same time, Kate did the Batman thing and the Bruce Wayne thing and automatically knew who the hell she was. So it was a matter of respect in both of them. So we're going to definitely see team-ups from those two in the future. I can't wait. I just can't wait to this whole thing. Like, I think Batwoman is going to just revitalize. It's not that the DCW series has slowed down or anything. I mean, it slowed down for a minute, but I think that series, when it finally comes out, is going to revitalize or energize or invigorate the entire universe even more. And then you got also with Black Lightning as well. So it's gonna get so crazy. And then all this leading up to Crisis on Infinite Earth, it's gonna be wild. And the belief is that all of these worlds are finally gonna come together as one. So, which is great, because I like the fact that they have Kara and all these the Supergirl crew and Earth 38, but having them all merged into their own 52 or 53 or whatever type of world will be absolutely great. It will all make sense, and they no longer have to, go and do anything like that. So that was awesome there. They left with that, and it leads off to Supergirl, which after the events of, the Gotham situation following up for Professor Deegan, the Anti-Monitor is not really happy with how he's been using the book to rewrite realities. He doesn't think he was doing enough change and manipulation of realities, so he's pushing them harder to do so further. And he does this he encourages them to do this by changing both Barry and Oliver back to their normal selves, but without the powers. And they become this brotherly, criminal duo. I forgot the names of the crew that they called them. And I got a feeling it's based on some type of, comic book characters as well. But they are now powerless. They look like a wrestling tag team wearing the same suits on and everything. And it's all crazy. So they're running from not only the cops, but they're also Superman. This Superman is in all black, and that is due to the fact that Professor Deegan himself has decided to turn himself into Superman. What he did was plainly do a Dragon Ball Super Goku Black move. He, instead of, Goku Black, if anybody knows Dragon Ball Super, Goku Black did the same thing. One of the gods did one of the side. I forgot what they called. The Kais. One of the Kais ended up turning bad, and I guess I forgot what happened. Did he turn himself via using the Dragon Balls and turned himself into Goku? Yeah, he did. He turned himself into Goku via the Dragon Balls. In this case, my man took the book and turned himself into Superman. It's totally a Goku Black situation. If he would have turned his hair to rose color, them boys would have been dead. In this case, so he and in this world, in Earth 1 world, he manipulated everybody into his own vision of everything. Not only that, he took and turned Star Labs and turned them into his own regime, almost similar to that of Injustice. So he has his own regime, he has his own army, one of which a few of the members are actually Alex Danvers, her sister, and Killer Frost in full Killer Frost mode. So they're convinced that Oliver and Barry are the enemies, and they're trying to hide out. The idea here is that now that Deegan has turned himself into Superman, that they're going to need a Superman to counter that. So they needed to travel back to Earth 38 to retrieve the real Clark and Lois to come back to help him out. In the midst of that, I'm going back there. They had to go into this bar to find Cisco and find out so Cisco can actually vibe him back into Earth 38. Cisco in this world is like some type of a drug lord or gangster or something like that. His biggest bodyguard is James Olsen. It's crazy as hell. So they wound up convincing Cisco to come back to Earth 38 and get him go to the Fortress of Solitude and find Superman. In the midst of this, they have a hammer. This hammer, which Lois is welding, looks a lot like Steel's hammer. If you guys DC fans know Steel is. Steel is the guy who actually took over as one of the Supermans when the Superman died. So for some reason he had that hammer. I could be wrong. It looks like his hammer. I don't know why they had that hammer, but if anybody can confirm this and let us know, that would be awesome. But she had the hammer, which actually had its own power in itself, and they decided to go back to fight against I'm gonna call him Superman Black at this point. So they had that situation going on. So they finally got him back. So then we have in this world Kara, who's held captive in the Star Labs quote unquote new Superman headquarters in that jail, and she sees that Alex is one of the people that has been changed. This is a whole new version of Alex, and same memories, same everything, just doesn't realize that they were sisters or they ever were connected. But Alex has a ponytail now, just a whole thing, and she's trying to, break free, and Alex is not trying to hear it, but Alex is very diligent with her job. Killer Frost is trying to convince her to take a break. She's like, no, I'm really dedicated to this, even though I broke up with my boyfriend just recently, and take note of that. So that was a very interesting situation right there. Totally different Alex in that sense. But then they, pretty much down the line, she started to convince Alex that they were somehow related and, sisters and whatnot, because she retracted a memory that only she would know from there. So that helped out, and she ended up helping, Kara break free as a result of that. So you got that situation. Oliver, on the other hand, while Superman comes back to fight Superman Black in what looks like a very similar injustice God among us type of battle scene, is that you have Oliver doing the Batman style of confronting things, and he went to go face the Monitor himself to try to get him to actually put everything back in perspective, or also to find out why he's doing everything. That scene right there was very Batman. Batman has been known to do stuff like that all the time. He's faced Darkseid so many times by himself with no powers at all. And I actually enjoyed that. I actually liked that moment. So somehow, some way, they end up being successful. While Oliver was doing that, Kara and Barry decided to try to slow down the process of Superman Black's, altering reality again. So by doing so, they had to slow time. A la the Superman movies. I believe it was Superman 2 that he did that. And so there was that homage. So, but the risk of doing so was almost meaning that they were going to disintegrate and they were going to die, doing it because they had to go so fast to slow down his process. Luckily, Oliver convinced him otherwise to do so, and everything went back to normal in this case, except for Professor Deegan, who his face become fragile and, hard at this point, which then reveals that he is in his true Dr. Destiny form. So that's going to be interesting because now we got a new character in the midst. The origin of that has now come by as well. So by the end of this, we find Barry and Oliver at a bar, just having a moment, bonding together, and, realize that they have understood each other's worlds now a lot better. And, Oliver thinking that everything was all rainbows and lollipops and sunshine for Barry, but it wasn't, because now he figured out what Barry was going through with the death of his father and his mother and such, and vice versa with Barry and Oliver. But, it allowed them to learn from each other and to better themselves in both ways. And it's cool because it'll mean a lot more when things get way deeper in 2019 as well for that too, especially with something that Oliver said, because Oliver, before they had a toast, Oliver kind of left a hint of something like, let's just enjoy things for as much as we can, and that kind of was like, okay, this is before we even knew that they were doing Crisis on Infinite Earth. And it was like, all right, that doesn't sound right. That does not sound right the way they had it off. But the cool part added to this at the very end was that Oliver received a phone call. And the phone call was from none other than Batwoman, who informed him that, I don't think everything is quite over yet. I believe that Professor Deegan and the gold mask villain that we saw in Arkham Asylum, who Dan Matthews, shout out to him on our A.C.M.G Facebook group, may have reason to believe that it's a DC character by the name of Psycho Pirate. So that is his speculation, but we'll find out soon enough, because it looks like this is the big leadoff to Batwoman having her own show coming soon. And I am also looking forward to this. That episode of Arrow was somewhat similar to the episode where they debuted Barry Allen as the Flash, and then he wound up going on to his own show later on. So this seems like the same type of deal right now where they're doing and, getting everybody to feel and everything. She's going to be a huge hit in this show. She is going to change the game. Ruby Rose is going to be the it girl for 2019 for everybody. Trust me when I say that. So it leads off of that. She, and all in all, and then, at the very end, they announced it. We're getting Crisis on Infinite Earth. Somebody's got to go. It's going to be the calm before the storm is coming, man. Like, whatever Ali and the rest are going through right now, they can get through Diaz at this point compared to what they just went through now and what they're about to go through and pretty soon and going in the near future. So, all in all, I still think Crisis on Earth X, to me, was a lot of fun. And this was meant to be a prelude. This was absolutely a prelude to bigger things to come. And I think, which, by the way, I will add this, they said that they weren't going to add the Legends of Tomorrow into this saga. However, they were mentioned matter of fact, not only were they mentioned, I believe Gary, which is the character on Legends of Tomorrow, was in the alternate universe or reality that Deegan created. So there was some influence of Legends of Tomorrow in there. Gary is the Time Patrol, operative or agent, that goofy character on Legends of Tomorrow. And then also this week's Legends of Tomorrow, they did also have a scene where I believe the gang got a message from Kara, Oliver, and Barry calling them, and I believe Nate said that's a hard pass. So that was their reason for being out of the loop out of this whole entire thing. So I like that they still connected them in somewhat way. They weren't totally out of the loop, and it made sense. That little hint type of situation was absolutely great. So they covered their grounds. They did a lot. They got us a lot to wonder and wish and hope and figure out what's going to happen next. And we still got a whole entire, half season to go of all these shows, as well as Black Lightning. Black Lightning ended up in a really deep situation too, going into January as well, which that's when that series will be back. That's been a great series as well. I mean, Riverdale tonight is going to have their series finale as well. CW is the comic book channel. It's the real comic book channel for everybody in primetime TV. They have done a tremendous job in over the 7 years they've been doing this, and I can't wait to see how they get to this in Crisis on Infinite Earth, which will be a majorly huge deal. Trust me on that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That'll do it for this special edition, if you will, of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. Again, I will be doing a Select Start Gaming podcast coming tomorrow, talking about Super Smash Brothers, the new Joy-Con that I got, the actual new cover that I got for my Nintendo Switch that I'll be talking about, which will be a big help to those getting the D-pads and the Joy-Cons as well. So that will be it for that. And then Sunday's going to be a double deal. I'm going to be cramming because Friday is going to be Voltron. The final episode of Voltron is coming. I mentioned it before. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to spend the day to actually watch that and work on the Voltron Lego deal. So I'll be doing that as well. But I believe Saturday morning, I'm actually going to go to the movies to go see Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse, do a morning matinee or something like that and check it out. And get that out of the way too. So we're going to be doing a double review on that as well. So that's, oh man. And then later on, I got it all set up. I think the last actual big show, Prime show I'm going to do is my review of the new episode of Baki, which is Baki the Grappler, the cherished legendary cult anime series of underground mixed martial arts in there, and that's coming on Netflix on Tuesday. So we're going to be talking about that and much, much more. And I forgot to add this part. Next week, if you've been watching Disney XD's Avengers Black Panther Quest, the series mid-season ending has come off, and now we will have Jeffrey Thorne back on once again to talk about all the events that has happened on that series and possibly, hopefully, dig into what's going to happen next. I know for a fact that a certain web slinger will be coming very soon, and I knew that it was coming. He posted something on Twitter a while back and using the word twip, which is the normal word that you would use, the only word that you would use associated with Spider-Man. And I reached out to him like, wait, is that meaning what I think it's going to be meaning? And he replied back, I don't know what you're talking about. And lo and behold, there's a commercial out saying that there's a special Black Panther's Quest episode with Spider-Man coming. So we're going to talk about that much more and everything that happened in that series rundown. It was a really good series, so I'll be happy to talk about it. presents Talk Time Live is brought to you in part by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design. Your choice for web design, graphic design, and all multimedia development needs. Visit VFISAD.com and let us bring your vision to reality.